Hello my friends, in this video we'll be taking a look at the autosomal DNA results, predicted phenotype traits, and G25 results of a female Bronze Age Iranian from the north of Iran, from Gorgan, this region right here. It's actually Shah Tepe burials, a very famous collection of burials. They actually range from the Chalcolithic to historical period, but we're going to look at Bronze Age burials from this burial site in northeastern Iran. So what's interesting about this individual is she resembles various southeastern Iranian groups today. So she's mostly of Iranian Neolithic farmers stock. She resembles Iranian Neolithic farmers. Her mitochondrial lineage is J1b. With G25, she resembles Iranians from Mazandaran province, Bandari Iranians, Makranis, and Baloch. So this proximity to Makrani and Baloch tells you that she is very heavy in the Iranian Neolithic farmer component, perhaps even AASI component, because as you can see, she's quite close to Parsi from Pakistan and Parsi from India. So perhaps she has quite a lot of this South Asian component, but the dominant component in her ancestry is Iranian Neolithic farmer. Let's go ahead and see what she scores with the single mode population mixture. And here she's getting more or less a mixture of Makrani, Hinuk, Iranian, Mazandarani, and Baloch. Let's look up what is Hinuk. I'm not sure what Hinuk is. What is that? That's a Northeast Caucasian ethnic group. Very, very interesting. So she's getting more or less a mixture of Makrani, Northeast Caucasian, Iranian from Mazandaran, and Baloch. So she's quite Iranian, quite Southeastern Iranian in her results. So from my assumption about her results, she's very Iranian Neolithic farmer in her ancestry. Very heavy on the Iranian Neolithic farmer component in her ancestry. Let's go ahead and see what she scores with my trait predictor. We're going to start with Nashakot. We're going to start with her phenotype and appearance. And by the way, I did not mention the time period. She is from 31 centuries before the Common Era, so 51 centuries before present. This is the early Bronze Age period. And let's see what she looks like. So it looks like she has brown eye color at 83% likelihood. So very precise prediction for eye color. Definitely has brown eyes, although there is a quite large percentage likelihood for hazel eyes at 9%. 9% is pretty significant. In statistics, if it's above 5%, it's considered a significant percentage. So she does have a significant percentage odds for hazel eyes as well, and also a significant percentage odds for dark brown eyes, but most likely she has brown eye color, regular brown eye color. For hair color, she most likely has black hair at 87% likelihood, but there is also pretty significant likelihood for dark brown hair at 12% likelihood, and there is pretty much 0% odds for any hair color that is lighter than dark brown. So most likely she's got black hair, brown eyes, and olive or Mediterranean skin tone at 66.9% likelihood odds. She does not have white skin. She does not have pale skin. She does not have dark brown skin either, but she could have light brown skin. As you can see, she's scoring light brown skin at 32%, 32% odds. But the largest percentage odds she scores is for olive or Mediterranean skin at 67% odds. So most likely she's got olive skin tone. By the way, I've got comments from people saying that I'm mispronouncing the word olive. I'm supposed to say olive, and I keep pronouncing it as olive. So I think I should be saying olive for the skin tone. So most likely she's got olive skin tone at 67% odds. So olive skin, black hair, brown eyes. And for hair texture, it looks like she's got straight hair texture, although there's quite a significant odds for wavy hair and curly hair as well. And she does not have kinky hair. Her odds for kinky hair is only 0.4%, so she does not have a kinky hair texture. Most likely her hair texture is somewhere between straight, wavy, or curly. When it comes to her nose shape, she most likely has a snub-shaped nose. Her odds for Greek nose shape is 35%, which is quite significant, but most likely her odds for nose shape is that she has a snub-shaped nose. And for coloring related variants found in the file, she has two light color variants in this variation of HERC2. So just right off the bat, we already assume that with Snipper 3, she would probably score something lighter, perhaps green or hazel, perhaps even blue. but she does not have blue haplotype 3, and she has heterozygous genotype in BH2, and she has BH1. So my assumption is that with SNPR 3 she would score green or hazel, but we can actually check that right now. We're gonna check that in a couple seconds what she scores for SNPR 3's eye color predictor. She has 2 light color variants in SLC for 24A5, so light pigmentation of skin. She does not have any light color variants in SLC 45A2, so definitely darker coloring of eyes, hair, and skin. But I don't think these variations play that big of a role in SNPR 3, so this wouldn't impact the SNPR 3 prediction all that much. But with my trait predictor, this plays a very big role. So with my trait predictor, this is a big reason why she's scoring brown eyes instead of hazel, because she should be scoring hazel really, but she's scoring brown instead, and it's because of this genotype right here. But with SNPR 3, it doesn't play that big of a role. So I think with SNPR 3, she might actually score green or hazel instead. Right. So she doesn't have light color variants in this variation of IRF 4, and she actually has one ginger variant in this variation of MC1R. So she even has some predisposition to red hair. But let's go ahead and check what she scores with SNPR 3's eye color predictor. And my prediction right now is it's going to be green or hazel, because that's what it's looking like. But let's see. And yeah, it's green or hazel, exactly. So SNPR 3's prediction for her is that she has green or hazel eye color. Very, very interesting. So as I said, these SLC 45A2 genotypes, they don't play that big of a role in the SNPR 3 data set, because the SNPR 3 data set is quite flawed and it doesn't really include people of different ethnicities. So it's quite flawed. The data set itself is very limited, and it's small, and it's quite bad in terms of SNPR 3. It's incomplete in my opinion, and it's very predictable. It's very easy to guess just by looking at the genotypes what the result with SNPR 3 is going to be. But green or hazel is her prediction here. And like, if you look at these eye colors that you see with SNPR 3, if you look at these eye colors, I mean, this is hardly green. I wouldn't call this green at all. It's maybe hazel, especially the colors on the left and on the right. It is maybe hazel, but the colors in the middle, this, it's very solidly brown. So this is not really even different from the prediction that my trait predictor gave for this individual. It is very solidly brown. So it's not really at all different from the prediction that this individual got with my trait predictor. Let's go ahead and check what she scores with the phenotype oracle. Okay. So the closest phenotypes to her are this, which is looks like an Alpinid phenotype, sort of a West European, French, maybe Spanish, maybe Turkish, kind of a Mediterranean-looking phenotype, followed by this, which is a by the way, just to give you an update, like a heads up, this phenotype oracle, it takes into account the Nashakot results, and also it takes into account another calculator results, facial morphology calculator, that takes into account the SNPs relevant to facial morphology, such as the nose shape, the eye shape, EDAR gene, stuff like that, and it gives you it sort of builds a coordinate system, and it matches you up against a hash map of different ethnicities that all have different coordinates, and it gives you like a distance-based prediction what ethnicities you match closest and what ethnicities you are furthest to in terms of your phenotype, based on your coloring, based on your genotypes, based on your actual DNA data, not based on your ethnicity, based on your DNA data, what phenotypes you match closest. That's what it is. So you can be English, but if you got curly hair and you got dark color eyes and skin, you're gonna score closest to black people with this phenotype oracle. That's what it is, because it's based on your genotypes, not based on your ethnicity. It's not based on your ethnic makeup. Like, your ethnic makeup actually has nothing to do with what you're gonna score with this calculator. So she's scoring closest to this phenotype, which is, I guess, a Mediterranean phenotype, followed by this, which is looks like an Iranian phenotype, followed by this, which is a Central Asian phenotype. And she's getting modeled as a mixture of, let's see, looks like a mixture of Middle Eastern plus European, but like not really European, more like, I guess, Cro-Magnon or something, some kind of a dark archaic looking European. Then another mixture of dark archaic looking European plus Alpinid. Then another mixture of Middle Eastern plus dark archaic looking European. Then another mixture of Alpinid plus Alpinid. Then another mixture of Middle Eastern plus Central Asian. So it looks like all these phenotypes, I don't really know what to make sense of them. The general trend is they all kind of look a little bit potato. None of them have these like big bulging eyes or sharp long noses, and it makes sense. Once again, it makes sense because you remember she wasn't scoring. If you look at the Nasha code calculator results, once again, she was scoring snub-shaped nose, and that also affects what you score for the phenotype oracle. So none of these phenotypes have these bulging noses. I guess the closest to bulging, like long aquiline nose, would be this on the bottom right here. But really, all these phenotypes look a little bit potato, a little bit more on the potato side. So that makes sense. Okay, let's close that. And in terms of the coloring, they also align pretty closely to what she is, what color she scores. Let's see what she scores for the ethnic calculator results. That might be interesting. I don't normally show that in my videos because my ethnicity calculator isn't the best. But and also the ethnicity calculator is like its own feature. It doesn't affect any other aspect of the scores. It does not affect any other score besides like itself. But I just included here, and she's closest to Kafkaz medieval individuals from Anapa, medieval Afghans, Sarmatians from the Urals, Israelites, Cimmerians from Ukraine, followed by Punjabi Jats, Bactrians, Hispanics, Sarazm Neolithic individuals from Tajikistan, and finally Pizarbasi hunter-gatherer from Anatolia. And the closest two-way mixture is a mixture of South Asians plus Azerbaijani Neolithic, then Anatolia Iron Age Luvians plus Shah006 BA2. So that's very close. That's actually really precise, very interesting. So with this sample, based on 569 SNPs, this ethnicity calculator was actually able to pretty spot on identify the components that make up this individual's genome. It identified the South Asian ancestry, and it identified the West Asian ancestry that is present in this individual. Really, really spot on. There's even the third line, Iranian individual plus Shah-006 Bronze Age 2. So I feel like that's really spot on. That's really good. There's New Grange 10 British Neolithic farmer plus Shah-006 Bronze Age 2. That's a little bit off because I don't think this individual has that much Anatolian Neolithic admixture. That is a little bit off. There's also New Grange British Neolithic farmer plus South Asian. That is also a little bit off. But overall, this calculator has been quite good in terms of spotting the admixture in this individual. Let's go ahead and see the biomarkers results. Okay. So for the biomarkers, she's scoring above average for levels of vitamin D. That's really good. Above average for levels of LDL cholesterol. That's really unfortunate. That's actually kind of high. That's higher than what's typical and what I'm expected to see. Let's look that up. Let's look that up in the file. So she's got a genotype for slightly higher LDL cholesterol. Very interesting. Is there any other genotypes for? There's also genotype for decreased HDL cholesterol. Very unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate. And we also see lower levels of HDL cholesterol in the same biomarkers panel here as well. So she's quite cooked when it comes to her levels of cholesterol. For glucose, she's got below average level of glucose. That's good. That's good. Above average level of hemoglobin. That's, I guess that's okay. High blood pressure. Okay, so that's unfortunate. Higher level of iron in the blood. So it looks like she's carrying some risk variants for hemochromatosis. Let's look that up. Hemochromatosis. Yeah, she's got 2 copies of the H63D variant and likely suffers from hemochromatosis. So she's got the His63 ASP variants for hemochromatosis. So she does carry the variants for the Celtic curse. Very, very, very interesting. Does she carry any other risk variants? Nope, not here, not any here. So the only risk variants for hemochromatosis that she carries are H63D. That seems to be the most common risk variants to carry for this condition. She's got below average dose for sex hormone binding globulin. She's got below average odds for red blood cell count and blood, and she's got higher number of base pairs. Very, very, very high score for base pairs. So she's definitely predisposed to having a longer lifespan and longer telomere length. Really good to see. Kind of really, really outlandish genotype, actually, phenotype. Really outlandish phenotype. So I don't see that very often. That's really like, uh, how do I say this? That's an outlier result. That's an outlier result for sure. So she's really predisposed to a longer lifespan. And she's predisposed to being slightly taller than average. Pretty cool. Alright. Now let's go ahead and see what she scores with the polygenic risk scores. I am going to ignore everything that's average and only going to talk about stuff that's really either very above or very below average. Okay. So she's got higher than average odds for kidney stones. She's got very high odds for hemoglobin E disease, and she's got risk variance in these two variations for hemoglobin E disease. She's got low odds for migraine. She's got low odds for eczema. She's got low odds for exfoliation glaucoma. She's got a very high odds for age-related macular degeneration. Wow, that's crazy. I'm not going to look that up because that's pretty useless. These variants are all in the file, and you get more information from just looking at the summary right here. But that's very crazy. That's a crazy score. So she's very much predisposed to age-related macular degeneration. She has a predisposition to epilepsy. She has a predisposition to leukemia. She's protected from vitiligo. She has a predisposition to myopia. She's protected from corneal astigmatism. She has a predisposition to primary biliary cirrhosis. She's protected from stroke. She has a predisposition to male pattern hair loss. So that's a condition that's every West Eurasian is going to score higher for. So if you're of Iranian or Russian or English or whatever Western Eurasian, which includes Europeans or Middle Eastern people or North Africans ancestry, you're going to score higher for the odds of male pattern hair loss. So that's nothing surprising. She is scoring above average for that. And she's a female, so she doesn't have to worry about losing her hair. She's got below average odds for deep vein thrombosis. She's got average odds for ADHD, really good to see. Below average odds for unipolar depression. She's scoring high for bipolar type 1. And she's scoring high for schizophrenia. She's scoring average for type 2 diabetes, average for type 1 diabetes, below average for Alzheimer's, below average for multiple sclerosis. Okay, she's scoring 2 risk variants for breast cancer out of 24, which is pretty good. 12 risk variants for testicular cancer out of 22, and she's got two risk variants in all the relevant variations of Keto G. So she's quite cooked. Actually, not in all the relevant variations because she's got only one risk variant here. So she's not even all that cooked when it comes to Keto G risk variants. She's doing pretty good actually when it comes to Keto G risk variants. Pretty good, better than average for Europeans or Middle Eastern people. So she's not even that predisposed to testicular cancer. 2 risk variants for celiac disease out of 12, which is pretty typical. No risk variants for GSS. 7 out of 24 for Crohn's disease, and it looks like none of them are in the important variations, so that's pretty good to see. No risk variants for Riefenstein's. 1 for Parkinson's, and that is probably a miscall. This risk variant is probably a miscall, so I'm not going to take it seriously. 1 for Gilbert syndrome, probably not a miscall. It's common. No risk variants for basal cell carcinoma. No risk variants for porphyria. No risk variants for Petersjeghers. We don't see any uncommon risk variants here. We see only 6 out of 24 for allergies. So she's definitely quite protected from allergies. She does have 2 uncommon risk variants for familiar hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. And we see 2 for the same trait. And this is probably not a miscall. These are probably not miscalls because they're both for the same trait and they're both located right next to each other. And they're both probably in the same gene. Let's look them up. If they are in the same gene and they're located next to each other, then they are probably not miscalls. We can look them up right now. Let's look them up right now. Let's do that right now. So this one is in my L2 and it's located Um, P14. P14, petite arm 14, mile 2 gene. Petite arm 14, mile 2 gene. What about this one? No, this one's different. So this is a different gene. This is a different gene, actually. So these might be miscalls, actually. These variants are so rare, it's probably miscalls, to be honest. So I am inclined to say these are miscalls. For irritable bowel syndrome, also two common risk variants here. For congenital insensitivity to pain, two risk variants here. This is probably not a miscall because there's two. It's homozygous genotype, so this is probably genuine. Very, very interesting. Okay. So this is probably something I'm going to put in a thumbnail for this sample. This sample has congenital insensitivity to pain. So this individual has this rare condition where they do not feel pain. That's very, very interesting. Common risk variants for Brugada syndrome, but that's not that big of a deal. And we do not see anything else here. This is a miscall, but nothing else. Yep, nothing else. And Lee Romani, this is also a miscall. There's a lot of these rare genotypes here, and most of them are miscalls. Most of them are due to genotyping errors. But the result for age-related macular degeneration, that's crazy. The 10 times the average also that's crazy. That's a really crazy result. Let's go ahead and go over the monogenic traits and find out what she scores for that. So it looks like for warrior versus warrior traits, she's scoring much more for warrior. She's definitely more of a warrior. So slower dopamine reuptake and higher dopamine levels. Lower stress resiliency is her. That is based on her genotypes in COMT, MAOA, and MAOB. So she's got warrior genotype in MAOA. She's got this genotype right here in the MAOB, which also is a warrior genotype. She also has this genotype right here in COMT, which is a warrior genotype. So she has all these warrior genotypes in COMT, MAOA, and MAOB. So it makes sense for her to score warrior with my panel. For dopamine D2, she's scoring higher number of dopamine D2 receptor sites in the brain, which also makes sense. And it also contributed to her scoring higher for odds for bipolar and schizophrenia. She was scoring very high for that, which also makes sense. She is a carrier of a risk allele for dwarfism. I just spotted that. That is very crazy. So she does carry a lot of these really rare risk variants for these rare conditions. And most of the times, it is a miscall. What else? There is also this uncommon genotype, 7 times increased risk of DSPS. Very interesting. She is a carrier of one rare allele associated with longer sleep duration. Very cool. And for levels of 5-HT and serotonin, she's got predisposition to intermediate levels of 5-HT and serotonin. So intermediate predisposition to such conditions as anxiety and depression. For odds of autism, she has a predisposition to higher odds of autism. For odds of lactose persistence, she has a predisposition to higher or intermediate odds of lactose persistence. So she's actually not lactose intolerant. That's very interesting. So she's got this genotype, which leads to being lactose persistent. And she's got a lactose persistence variant here. So she actually does carry some variants for being lactose persistent. And because of that, with my trait predictor, she's predicted to be lactose persistent. Very, very interesting. For OXTR, she is predicted to have higher level of empathy, higher or average level, but really higher level of empathy, based on these 5 S&Ps. Let's scroll past all of this. There is no variance for Alzheimer's and APOE. She has one risk variant for multiple sclerosis and HLA-DRB1, but really she does not have any risk variants for multiple sclerosis anywhere else. That is really good. I am assuming the HLA gene panel is going to look very good. For her odds for cardiovascular disease panel, it looks like she's got intermediate odds of cardiovascular issues. Really good to see. And for vitiligo panel, she does have one risk variant in the HLA, but it looks like overall her HLA gene panel is looking really good. She doesn't really have any risk variants. I mean, 1 out of 4 risk variants for HLA for the vitiligo panel, it's looking really good for her. Only 1 out of 4 risk variants. For facial morphology panel, she does have this genotype right here, which means no European EDAR alleles. But she also has this genotype, which is typical for Europeans in EDAR. it's quite interesting that despite this genotype, this really exotic genotype, she's still scoring these very European, but also not really. Actually, not really. Hold on, because this is not really even a West Eurasian phenotype to score. Like this is kind of a Central Asian phenotype, right? It has these Mongolish, Amerindianish traits, right? And this phenotype right here also has these Mongolish Amerindianish traits. So, and so does this one. In truth be told, so does this one as well. So a lot of these phenotypes that she scores are partly East Eurasian in appearance, and that is because the reason she scores these phenotypes is because of this genotype right here in EDAR. That's not a European genotype in EDAR, and because of that, she's scoring these Central Asian phenotypes in the Oracle. She's got a genotype for longer mid-face length. She's got a genotype for more upturned nose. She's got a genotype for nose pointing up, so that contributed to her scoring snub-shaped nose. We remember she was scoring 60 something percent for snub-shaped nose. She's got lower odds of missing teeth, and she's got a genotype for thicker eyebrows and a genotype for thinner eyebrows. Pretty cool. She does not have micropenis. Okay, and she has a genotype for larger brain volume that is quite rare, and she also is not an Asian flusher. Her risk of heart failure due to beta blocker medications is 1.9 times the average, so she's definitely very predisposed to heart failure due to beta blocker medications. And we remember she does have variants for pain hyposensitivity, but it is good to know that she does not have any risk variants for pain hypersensitivity. By the way, these variants for pain hypo and hypersensitivity are all located in the same gene, SCN9A. It is the same gene that's responsible for both of these conditions. So it looks like she does not have any risk variants for pain hypersensitivity in this gene. That's really good to see. She has this genotype right here in ACT1, which is a slightly increased odds of cannabis-induced psychosis. And it looks like she does not have any risk variants for albinism. Really good to see. So she's not albino. And she carries one risk variant for familiar Mediterranean fever. Familiar Mediterranean fever is I think it's an autoimmune condition. I don't remember exactly, but I think it is an autoimmune condition that affects people of Mediterranean descent, particularly Jews, Greeks, Turkish people, Armenians. I don't know if it affects people of Iranian descent all that much, but she does have one risk variant of this condition. And she has a very below average risk score for alcoholism. Really good to see. Let's scroll past all of this. For rare diseases and traits panel, let's see. Does she have any rare conditions? She has some predisposition to hemoglobin E disease that we already know. She has much lower risk of exfoliation glaucoma that we already know. And we do not see any conditions. We have rheumatoid arthritis. She has a predisposition to rheumatoid arthritis, and she has a carrier of pseudo-arisulfitate A deficiency allele. Very interesting, but that does not tell me anything. And yep, nothing else. So she's not really carrying any rare conditions, and you're just going for any rare conditions here. Good to see. Ooh, okay. She does not have the A allele in this variation of AR, so she does not have the protection from baldness. Nothing too surprising because pretty much only Africans have this rare A allele. And she does not have any risk variants for Canavan syndrome, and she does have protective variants in HLA-C that lead to a reduction in HIV viral load. She also has one variant for increased susceptibility to AIDS and higher HIV viral load. Very interesting. And she does not have any protective variants here that would lead to protection from HIV. For the HLA gene panel, she's scoring lower odds of autoimmune disease, and you can look at the panel like on the right here. By the way, if you really want to examine this deeper in detail, because I'm not gonna go and talk about every single genotype here, you can pause the video and change the settings of the video to higher resolution and pause and look at the genotypes, but I'm not going to discuss them. So it looks like she's got lower predisposition to lower odds of autoimmune disease, and that's really good to see. So she's really quite protected from various autoimmune conditions. By the way, I do encourage you to pause the video and actually look at the stuff that's on the right here, that's on the right in the HLA gene panel variants. For the MTRR gene panel, it looks like she has two genotypes, actually no, three genotypes where she has risk variants, but everywhere else she does not have any risk variants for disorders of intracellular colon metabolism, so she's quite good in terms of her risk variants, quite protected. And for CBS gene panel, she's scoring lower or intermediate odds for homocysteine levels, and we see the highest impact S&P causes highest plasma homocysteine levels. Then some other genotypes lead to higher or lower. It's kind of a mixed bag if you look at the CBS panel. But let's see what we find in the MTHFR gene panel. Okay, the MTHFR gene panel looks good. Here she scores normal homocysteine levels and most common genotype lower odds of various health issues. So it looks like MTHFR gene panel is looking good. So the reason she's scoring such a high percentage for elevated homocysteine levels, because 20.6% is high. So the reason she's scoring such a high percentage for elevated homocysteine levels is because the highest impact SNP leads to highest plasma homocysteine levels. The highest impact SNP is sort of ruining the result a little bit for the panel. Okay, for the muscular dystrophy myopathies, she does not have any risk variance for that, and no risk variance for ADL. For color blindness, she does not have. She has 3 risk variants in OPN1SW. Wow, so she's really predisposed to color blindness. That's it. That's quite interesting. Maybe I should put that in the thumbnail. Yeah, I think I'm gonna put that in the thumbnail. I've never seen anybody have so many risk variants for color blindness in OPN1SW. That's really thumbnail worthy. But I also should say that females. It is believed that females do not exhibit color blindness because it is an X-linked condition, and for females to be colorblind, they would need to carry 2 alleles for that. Whereas for men to be colorblind, they only need to have 1 copy of the risk variant on the X. But also, OPN1SW is not a gene on the X; it's a gene on the 7th chromosome. So if her colorblindness is caused by genotypes in OPN1SW, in theory, she could actually be colorblind despite being a girl. So I don't actually know. If it's possible for her to be colorblind with this type of genotype. I don't know. I'm not gonna go and say she is colorblind. It might even be a miscall. These risk variants, it might even be miscalls. But there's definitely a predisposition to being colorblind with this type of genotype right here. I think I'm gonna put this in a thumbnail actually. For FTO gene panel, looks like she has predisposition to lower or intermediate odds of obesity based on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 SNPs. Based on these 9 SNPs, she has intermediate or lower odds of obesity. And based on 6 SNPs, she has lower odds of syncope. For biotraits panel, I'm going to try to get over this really quickly. She has 2 copies of the farmer CLTCL1 gene variant, which leads to selective advantages in processing carbohydrate-rich diets, presumably including those with lots of sugar. So she has 2 copies of the farmer CLTCL1 gene variant, and she is a Iranian Neolithic farmer. Well, she's not a Neolithic farmer; she's a Bronze Age individual, but she descends from Iranian Neolithic farmers, and she's got 2 copies of farmer CLTCL1 gene variant. So that's really advantageous for her being a farmer, and her diet consisting of carbohydrate-rich foods. Her having an advantage in processing carbohydrate-rich diets is really good for her. So that's pretty cool. Let's look at her blood type. Her blood type is most likely type A. Very interesting. Most common blood type is type O. But recently, in the videos I've covered, I think I've seen a lot of type A's and type B's as well. So that's really cool. Her blood type is definitely unusual, very atypical. I'm really excited to see blood types that are not type O. I'm really interested to see blood types that are sort of out of the ordinary, right? Because seeing O and O and O over and over gets a little bit repetitive. So it's really cool that her blood type is type A. Make sure you leave your thoughts and comments in the description in the comments down below. If you want to donate a little bit and make a suggestion what sample I should cover next, make sure you do that. I will give priority to the comments that donate money to me, and it's always useful if you support my channel a little bit. But anyway, in the description will be a lot of things. Make sure you read the description, and just read the description. Everything that I want to say is going to be in there. Thanks for watching my video, and goodbye.